Hi, I'm April Terry, a partner on the OTOK project. Today I wanted to spend about 5 minutes with you talking about a current issue that's impacting youth across the United States, including Kansas, and that is exposure to family violence. As mentioned, this presentation will be short, approximately 5 minutes, and hits the highlights on exposure to violence in homes, with some unique perspectives on youth residing in rural areas. Specifically, I will briefly discuss youth exposure to violence, the anticipated and observed increase in family violence during a time of social distancing and stay-at-home orders, and the subsequent link known as the abuse to prison pipeline. According to DeAndrea and colleagues, childhood exposure to interpersonal traumatic stressors is extremely common and has been described as a silent epidemic. Exposure to violence can include direct eyewitnessing of adult-to-adult violence, the hearing of violent events, and the visualization of the aftermath of family violence. Experts also recognize that mere awareness of intimate partner violence between caregivers can have harmful outcomes similar to other direct forms of violence and abuse. Currently, the National Domestic Violence Hotline anticipates an increase in U.S. home-based violence cases, both in intensity and frequency. To date, we do know both France and China have observed jumps in reports of domestic abuse. China reported domestic violence cases to have tripled in February of 2020 compared to numbers in February of 2019. Activists believe this is due to the enforced lockdown. France's sources have reported an increase ranging from 32 to 36%. In sum, we know our local youth are being exposed to violence within the home at greater rates than prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, families have been mandated to limit travel, social gatherings, and subsequently to spend greater time at home, in their residences possibly filled with violence. Rural communities are already characterized by social isolation from others. These communities report close-knit relationships. However, these same insider ties are said to result in the inhibition to intervene, report, and even act ethically by some professionals. Willingness to assist during a time of quarantine likely looks different in rural areas, where services are already limited. In Kansas, many providers are working remotely, and victims have limited access to support, including youth and especially youth in rural areas. Exposure to violence may be a singular event or chronic traumatic occurrences. Chronic trauma typically refers to the simultaneous or sequential occurrence of child maltreatment, including witnessing of domestic violence. Exposure to family violence is associated with consequences similar to the observed outcomes of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse and neglect. Specifically, later in life, those children exposed to violence experience a range of mental health symptoms, physical health problems, and social and behavioral issues. The research is clear. Exposure or awareness of family violence can have lifelong negative effects, especially for girls. In response to traumatic events, boys are more likely to engage in externalizing behaviors, such as aggression and fighting, whereas girls are more likely to engage in internalizing behaviors related to mental health, like depression or status offending such as running away, and even sexual acting out and substance use. Ultimately, many girls from abusive homes find that their own victimization leads to incrimination of their responsive behaviors, establishing a gendered pipeline into the criminal justice system. Research also shows that this pipeline may look differently in rural areas, where services are limited and interpersonal relationships are, at times, different than urban locations. In closing, Kansas's stay-at-home orders are likely to lead to increases in household violence. Exposure to this increase in family violence will have significant negative impacts on youth, especially girls and those located in rural areas. Assistance is nearly depleted in remote locations where services were lacking from accessibility prior to COVID-19 stay-at-home orders. During such unpredictable times, we should be aware of the added challenges for youth already under some form of community supervision. Those same youth lacking access to outside pro-social supports and community-based services. Now is the time to work together to prevent further exposure to violence, provide access to social supports, and to work diligently to break the abuse to prison pipeline. Thank you.